University of Maryland, College Park. I had the pleasure and honor of working with Dr. Chandra Turpen and Ms. Stephanie Williams to create my very own research project for SRI this summer. My research project is titled The Superposition of Spain, How the Language of Women in Physics Embodies Dualities. So, to jump right into things, I want to introduce you all to the population of women in physics. So, many women in physics have been found to leave the field. The population has had slow growth, and many internal factors and external barriers have created conflict for them within themselves and within their roles in their field. So, with all of the research that is available, we have found that there have been gaps in the literature and the published research. So we're wondering, why do women in physics stay? And we're also exploring how there are layered identities found within these women in physics, but there's not enough research that fully explores them. So I'm proposing a couple of research questions. First, I'm wondering, how do women construct, embody, negotiate, and protect their identities in the field of physics? From there, what language do women in physics use when talking about their experiences in physics? And lastly, what does it all reveal about the academic culture that they're navigating? Some key terms that have come up through our research are narrative agency, which is defined in an article by Sequels and others, which is defined as making sense of one story in the face of marginalization. Superposition, which is a term from quantum physics, but I'm using it in a metaphorical way. It's defined as holding multiple states or identities simultaneously in this research project. We're also exploring persistence, which is defined in this research project as the embodiment of continued effort. Identity, which is defined from an article by Carlone, defined as parts of self defined by the different positions in society. Lastly, we're exploring hope and joy. Hope is defined in this project as giving more life to people, things, or outcomes. Joy is defined as emotional resource for resilience. Through this research, we have been exploring a lot of background literature. Some of the articles and books that we have reviewed are listed on the screen. Starting in 1989, we were exploring an article by David Hammer, where he's exploring student epistemologies in learning physics, which epistemology is related to knowledge. It's the philosophy of knowledge. Next, we have an article by Edward Reddish from 1994, which explores the role of cognitive science in physics education. In 2012, notice that there's a big gap from 1994 to 2012. There's an article by Heidi Carlone, which I just recently mentioned. It explores identity research in science education. 2018, we explore an article written by Sequels and others, exploring experience in the face of marginalization and how women in physics can own that, or women in STEM. And in 2023, there's a book written by Mia Ong that explores fragmented identities and compounded systems. It explores women in physics and explores their specific case studies. And then in 2025, I'm working with Ms. Stephanie Williams, who's working on her PhD dissertation, and she's exploring specifically hope, joy, and what that means for staying in physics. So why are we doing this research? The broader purpose of Ms. Stephanie's research is to help women to thrive through means related to hope and persistence. She also wants to help increase retention of women in physics. My purpose, which is pulling a thread from Ms. Stephanie's research, is to specifically explore the identity and language of those women in physics. I want to philosophically expand how we think about staying in physics. So, I have three hypotheses. What could the language reveal while we conduct this research and while I specifically conduct my own thread of this research? First, high pressure. Women may be seen fighting to be seen. Second, they may seek community so that they feel connected to others while they're going through what they're going through. They may be finding ways to survive. Third, they may face barriers, including but not quite limited to internal and external conflict. The methods that I use to conduct this research include, it's a qualitative study. Now that includes conducting a secondary analysis of Ong's published case studies, conducting novel analysis of one case study. This is my own interpretive analysis from Ms. Stephanie's research. Discourse analysis of interview transcripts that are coming directly from my PI's research. And we drew from interdisciplinary literature, so that includes books related to cognitive science, identity, books and articles, and other subjects. So now I want to discuss the results of the case of Gabriella, which is stemming from Mia Ong's book. First, we're looking at her salient identities. Gabriella identifies as Chicana and indigenous. That is a very prominent identity. Salient identities are just about what comes forth the most, what is especially embodied and exuded from this person. One example of collapse is, I have included a short snippet from a full quote where Gabriella says she had to leave who she was outside of the classroom. So this is an example of a time where she may shrink herself while in the field or collapse into herself while in the field. Situations of expansion. I have included another snippet of a fuller quote where she said that a mindset that continues to serve, this is a quote that is directly from the author in regards to Gabriella, where it says, a mindset that continues to serve her well as a physics professor. So this is something that they found was very helpful to Gabriella while she was navigating, and this is an example of how she can thrive in the field even while facing these different barriers and conflicting experiences. Next, I want to discuss the case of Farah, which is from my original analysis of my PI's research. So, salient identities that come up for Farah are real scientist and future educator. These are things that came up especially while I was reading the interview data. A situation of collapse, another quote from the longer interview, is gain skills, move on, not your favorite thing, like that doesn't really matter. So I have basically put a quote that is a much longer quote, and that is indicated by the dots in the quote, where she is essentially saying that she feels less supported when she has to basically choose something that may not be her favorite thing, but that is very expected and common for her to do or for others to do in the field. A situation of expansion is when she's quoted to be saying, nice to see that what you're interested in is being taken seriously by people. So when she's discussing this experience, it's related to teaching, she feels like there's room for her to grow, there's room for her to thrive, there's room for her to excel in something that she truly enjoys, and she feels like it's respected by others in the field. So what does this language reveal? This research has revealed that multiple, sometimes conflicting identities show up in the women in physics. Community absence can sometimes force withdrawal or restriction from the women as they navigate through their experiences through the field in physics. Physics culture norms curate singular palatable identities. So this means that a lot of times people will hide parts of themselves to show up in a certain way in the field that they feel like is right or can be taken seriously or should be respected. Also, thriving often means holding space for contradiction. So this directly adds on to the previous bullet, meaning that to thrive, people in physics, women in physics tend to think that they have to shut out parts of themselves, and that's very contradicting. They have to hold this in themselves while they navigate through the field, which can make things very confusing and stressful. Additionally, identity is negotiated between seen and unseen selves. So this is, again, stemming and compounding on top of these other bullets, where identity is something that the women in physics have to piece together and try to force to come together. So basically, what is seen, how they exude themselves, is sometimes very contradicting with what is underneath, and they have to decide what can be shown, what cannot be shown. Is this allowed? Am I worthy? Can I give myself permission to be both of these selves? Lastly, language reveals that tension between surviving and thriving, between the seen and the unseen of all of their embodiment. So, now I want to discuss limitations and future directions. First, one limitation of this project was that it was an interpretive analysis only. However, in the future, I would love to expand, and there is a lot of room to expand, to conduct my own interviews and to ask specific questions to these women in physics to better pull out their experiences, their identities, and how they navigate through the field. Another limitation is that it was very specific to physics. However, on the right side, that leaves room to explore other fields, talk to other women in STEM, potentially other women in, I'm gonna leave it to women in STEM for this. Lastly, one limitation is that we were articulating a new framework. I know for myself, a limitation of mine was navigating, leaving physics to become a woman in philosophy and how to integrate physics education with a philosophical lens. But that leaves me with further room to better integrate these disciplines and connect with other faculty that can better help me pull everything together in a very concise, cohesive manner. Okay, I would love to thank Dr. Chandra Turpen, who is in here in the building with us, for agreeing to be my mentor and helping me to facilitate my research. I would like to also thank Ms. Stephanie Williams, who is in the second picture, who is my principal investigator. She was also my academic advisor in physics and helped me to find Dr. Turpen. I would like to thank the UMD Physics Department, and I would like to thank the Ronald E. McNair program at UMD, and I would like to thank my fellow scholars for supporting me through this, and I would like to thank all of my loved ones, some of which are also in the room. Thank you, and also, if you would like to cover my references, you can scan and this will lead you directly to a document, including all of them, and then also if you would like to add me on LinkedIn, I have included a cute little QR code to add